Man spots unusual intruder on garden camera. When Jeff finally found out who had been stealing crops from his garden, he was baffled. There he was. His worst nightmare, the one who had been ruining his crops and jeopardizing his family's livelihood. As he watched him delightfully leeching on his hard work, there was only one thing on Jeff's mind. What was he going to do about it? Jeff Peamer is a gardener in Middletown, Delaware. He lives with his wife and his 3 kids. He grows carrots, onions, potatoes, cantaloupes, tomatoes, and even more exotic things like Italian long and yellow peppers. He sells a big part of his harvest to some stores and restaurants in Wilmington, and another part he uses to feed his family. It's not surprising that he got so upset when a thief made his appearance around his land. At first, I was very upset. I have always been an avid gardener and dealt with tons of issues, but this was a first for us, Peamer declared to the press when asked about his story. So he found himself against the wall. He had to come up with a solution. He racked his brains in the attempt to find one, and he tried everything in the book. But it wasn't going to be an easy battle. He had already tried to set up a scarecrow and hung up old CDs. Last year, I even put a T-Rex in the garden to scare off birds, he wrote on Instagram. These measures had worked just alright to keep birds from stealing his crops, but clearly, they weren't enough to drive this new type of danger away. No matter what I did to try to protect the garden, he always figured out a way in. I'd build a higher fence, I'd put wood around the fence trying to protect my stuff. And he just took over. There was nothing I could do, he was always a step ahead of me. It seemed like an endless chess game. And with every move, Jeff found himself more and more against the wall. And the worst thing was that he didn't even know who or what was stealing his crops. I was really upset because I didn't know what was eating out of the garden, he told ABC Radio National's Life Matters show. I thought it was a deer, or it could have been a rabbit, he said. He didn't think it was a human. But in any case, he was in for a big surprise once he found out who the mysterious thief was. But in the meantime, he was left in the dark about who was putting his family's livelihood in jeopardy. And that was terribly frustrating for him. Weeks had passed, and the situation was not improving. But he finally came up with a plan. After giving it a lot of thinking, he finally devised a plan to unmask the slippery thief. He might have stayed awake all night, policing his garden and waiting for the thief to make his appearance. But that wouldn't have been very practical. So he decided to opt for a more high-tech solution. He would set up a motion-activated camera near his crops to catch the smooth criminal red-handed. And that's what he did. He bought the camera, set it up according to the instructions, and waited. It was only a matter of time until the mystery would be solved. And sure enough. A few days later, Jeff had some footage in his hands showing the thief enjoying his crops. And it wasn't what he expected. Jeff's arch-nemesis was a groundhog. There he was, unapologetically eating the crops and believing that he would be able to keep getting away with it. And he had such a devil-may-care attitude, Peamer said to the press, he was kind of saying, yeah, I'm eating your vegetables, what are you going to do about it? He was just so cool about it. So now that he had identified the culprit, Jeff was faced with a dilemma. What was he going to do about it? Some of his friends suggested killing it, others thought he should capture it and relocate it. Jeff reflected on the matter for a while. And after a few days, he came up with a solution. And it wasn't anything like what his friends had suggested. He liked the groundhog so much that he decided to just let it wander around his garden and go in and out as it pleased. He was just amused at its sight and how videogenic the groundhog was. He was just so entertaining. I found so much enjoyment out of it, I just kept going. But that wasn't the end of Jeff's plan. He had something else in mind. He realized that he couldn't get mad at the groundhog for eating his crops, at the end of the day, it was just trying to feed itself. He even sympathized with it. He was so cool that I embraced him, Peamer told ABC in 2021. Chunk went from being a pest to being a friend, almost, like part of the family. So he decided to keep filming the groundhog, give it the name of Chunk, and share his wanderings with the world. He created a YouTube channel called Chunk the Groundhog and regularly posts his videos on it. To this day, Chunk's adventures have been watched by more than 11 million viewers and are followed by 99,000 subscribers. The groundhog has conquered people's hearts with its audacity and unapologetic attitude. Chunk plops himself right in front of the camera every time and devours our produce. He even has the nerve to stare right into the camera like a boss, Peamer said. So what started as a pest and an enemy ended up becoming a friend to Jeff and his family. And millions of people have been witnessing and loving this friendship.